The Forbidden World. The massive holographic display flickered to life in the center of the Galactic Council chambers, showing a green and blue marble spinning slowly in the void. To most observers, planet Verdania looked like paradise. Lush forests covered 90% of its surface, crystal-clear oceans sparkled under twin suns, and the atmosphere readings showed perfect conditions for most known life forms. But the assembled alien delegates knew better. They called it by another name. The graveyard ambassador Zethkar of the crystalline hegemony stood at the podium, his translucent form shimmering with nervous energy. His voice carried the weight of centuries as he addressed the human delegation seated in the front row. Captain Martinez, I implore you to reconsider. 23 different species have attempted to establish colonies on Verdania. Advanced civilizations with technology far beyond what your species currently possesses. Warriors, scientists, explorers, merchants, it made no difference. All perished within lunar cycles of landing. Captain Sarah Martinez, Earth's chief ambassador, to the Galactic Council remained unmoved. Her dark eyes studied the planetary data streaming across her tablet while her expression stayed carefully neutral. At 45, she had spent the last decade navigating interstellar politics, and she knew when aliens were genuinely afraid. The fear in this chamber was palpable. With respect, Ambassador Zethkar, Sarah replied, her voice carrying clearly. Through the vast chamber's translation systems, humanity appreciates your concern. However, we've reviewed the available data, and we believe there may be approaches that haven't been attempted. A collective murmur rippled through the assembled delegates. The insectoid representative from the Hive Collective clicked its mandibles. In what Sarah had learned was their expression of disbelief. Captain Martinez, the Votan Empire attempted colonization with their biological warfare specialists. The ethereal communion tried establishing telepathic contact with the planet's ecosystem. Even the machine intelligences of the Nexus Coalition failed, and they don't require traditional life support. What makes you believe primitive humans can succeed where we have failed? Sarah stood slowly, her presence commanding attention despite being among the smallest beings in the chamber. Because we're not trying to succeed where you failed. We're going to try something entirely different. She gestured to the display, which now showed detailed scans of Verdania's surface. Every species that attempted colonization came with the same goal: to claim territory, extract resources, or establish dominance. Humans have a different approach to hostile environments. The crystalline ambassador's form brightened with agitation. You speak of adaptation, but Verdania doesn't simply resist colonization. It actively hunts and destroys any foreign presence. The planet itself is the enemy. Its flora and fauna operate with a coordination that suggests a collective intelligence spanning the entire biosphere. We've detected communication networks running through root systems, chemical signals that travel faster than our ships, and predator responses that adapt in real time to any defensive measure. Dr. Elena Vasquez, Earth's leading xenobiologist, had been listening silently from her position beside Captain Martinez. Now she leaned forward, her weathered hands clasped tightly together. At 60, she had spent her life studying impossible life forms across the galaxy, but Verdania represented the ultimate challenge. Ambassador, has any species attempted to communicate with this collective intelligence rather than fight it? The chamber fell silent. Zethkar's crystalline structure dimmed as he processed the question. Communicate? Captain? You cannot negotiate with a force of nature. Verdania doesn't want territory or resources, it simply eliminates threats to its existence. Your presence would be perceived as a contamination to be cleansed. Sarah exchanged glances with her team. Commander Jake Foster, a battle-scarred veteran of 3 interstellar conflicts, showed no emotion as he reviewed tactical data on his personal display. Dr. Chen Wei, the expedition's chief botanist, was already analyzing plant samples that had been recovered from failed missions. Alex Thompson, their technology specialist, was barely out of graduate school, but had developed breakthrough techniques in biological digital interfaces. Permission to speak freely, Captain? Commander Foster's gravelly voice cut through the diplomatic tension. Sarah nodded. Foster stood, his imposing frame adding weight to his words. "I've studied every mission report available. The Votan sent warriors expecting a conventional war. The Ethereals tried to impose their will through mental domination. The Nexus machines approached it like a computational problem to be solved. But here's what I don't see in any of these reports. Anyone tried to understand what Verdania actually wants." The alien delegates exchanged glances, their various forms of communication creating a symphony of clicks, chirps, and electromagnetic pulses. Finally, a new voice spoke from the back of the chamber. The Sage Council representative, one of the galaxy's oldest civilizations, rarely participated in such discussions. When Elder Thalnara spoke, others listened. "Young humans," the ancient being's voice resonated with the wisdom of millennia. "Your confidence is admirable but also dangerous. We have witnessed the rise and fall of countless species. Verdania has claimed civilizations with billions of years of accumulated knowledge. What you call understanding, it calls dinner." Sarah felt the weight of history pressing down on her, but also the familiar fire of human determination. "Elder, with the greatest respect, those civilizations approached Verdania as conquerors or colonizers. What if we approached it as visitors?" The question hung in the air like a challenge to the established order of galactic civilization. Every species present had built their interstellar presence on expansion, resource extraction, or territorial control. The concept of approaching a hostile world as visitors rather than invaders was fundamentally alien to their thinking. Dr. Vasquez stood beside her captain. "We've learned something from studying the mission reports. Verdania's responses aren't random or purely aggressive. They're intelligent, adaptive, and proportional. The more force brought against it, the stronger its counter-response. The larger the invasion force, the more coordinated its defense. It's not mindlessly hostile. It's protecting itself." Elder Thalnara's ancient form shifted slightly, the first movement Sarah had ever observed from the being. "Dr. Vasquez, you speak of Verdania as if it were a single entity rather than an ecosystem." "Because I believe that's exactly what it is," Elena replied firmly. "The coordination patterns, the response times, the way it adapts to different threats, this isn't just an ecosystem. This is a planetary organism with the entire biosphere functioning as its body." The implications of this statement rippled through the chamber. If Verdania was a single living entity, then every attempted colonization had been perceived as an attack on its body. No wonder it had defended itself so vigorously. Commander Foster added his perspective. "If Dr. Vasquez is correct, then we need to change our entire approach. Instead of planning an invasion, we need to plan a first contact mission." Captain Martinez made her decision. "The expedition launches in 30 standard days. We'll take a single ship with a minimal crew. No heavy weapons, no terraforming equipment, no permanent settlement supplies. We're going to Verdania to meet it, not to conquer it." The alien delegates erupted in various forms of protest and disbelief. Ambassador Zethkar's crystalline form flared bright with alarm. "Captain Martinez, you're condemning your people to death. The smallest expeditionary forces have been consumed just as thoroughly as the largest invasion fleets." Sarah's voice cut through the chaos with quiet authority. "Then we'll be the first to try something different. Humanity didn't reach the stars by playing it safe or following the paths others have taken. Sometimes the only way forward is through the unknown." 3 weeks later, the human expedition ship Curiosity approached Verdania's outer atmosphere. The crew had spent their journey developing protocols that no military academy or exploration manual had ever contemplated. Instead of battle plans, they had communication strategies. Instead of weapons deployment, they had cultural presentation materials. Instead of claiming beacons, they carried gifts. Dr. Chen Wei monitored the atmospheric readings as they descended through layers of clouds that seemed to shift and move with unnatural patterns. "Oxygen levels are optimal, but I'm detecting chemical compounds I've never encountered. The air itself seems to be carrying information." Alex Thompson looked up from his instrument panel, excitement clear in his young voice. "Dr. Chen, you need to see this. The electromagnetic patterns in the atmosphere aren't random, their structure almost like a language. Sarah felt the familiar mixture of fear and exhilaration that came with stepping into the unknown. Through the viewport, Verdania's surface was becoming visible. Massive trees with trunks wider than Earth's redwoods stretched toward the sky, their canopy so dense that the forest floor remained hidden in shadow. But what caught her attention were the movements, subtle shifts and adjustments that suggested the trees themselves were watching their descent. Commander Foster activated the ship's external communications array, beginning first contact protocols, broadcasting on all frequencies. This is the human vessel Curiosity. We come in peace, seeking understanding, not conquest. We wish to learn about your world and share knowledge of our own. The response was immediate and overwhelming. The entire visible forest began to move. Not individual trees, but waves of motion rippling outward from their landing zone like a massive organism turning its attention toward them. Flowers the size of buildings opened and closed in synchronized patterns. Vines reached upward from the canopy, swaying in complex rhythms that seemed almost like sign language. Dr. Vasquez's instruments went wild with readings. Sarah, I'm detecting massive biological activity. Neural-like signals are propagating through root networks at incredible speeds. The entire continent appears to be thinking. The Curiosity touched down in a clearing that hadn't existed moments before. As they watched through the viewports, trees around the landing site were actually moving aside, their massive trunks sliding through the earth as easily as humans might part curtains. The clearing formed a perfect circle around their ship, and then the movement stopped. Silence fell over the ship's crew as they realized they were sitting in the palm of a planetary intelligence that could have crushed them at any moment, but instead had made room for them to land safely. Commander Foster's tactical training warred with the evidence before his eyes. Captain, this doesn't match any of the mission reports. Previous expeditions described immediate violent resistance to landing attempts. Sarah stared out at the wall of living forest surrounding them, each tree apparently capable of movement, yet currently still as statues. Maybe that's because previous expeditions came with invasion fleets and terraforming equipment. We came with one small ship and a message of peace. Dr. Chen Wei's voice was filled with wonder as she studied her instruments. The chemical composition of the air around our ship is changing. The planet is analyzing us, learning about our biology, our technology, our intentions. As the first day on Verdania drew to a close, the human crew realized they had achieved something unprecedented in galactic history. They had landed on the graveyard planet and lived to see sunset, but their real test was just beginning. Human ingenuity. Unleashed dawn on Verdania brought revelations that challenged everything the galactic community thought they knew about the planet. Dr. Elena Vasquez stood at the observation port of their landed ship, watching as the forest around them came alive with the rising of the twin suns. But this wasn't the chaotic awakening of a typical ecosystem. This was choreographed, purposeful, almost musical in its coordination. Alex, are you recording this? She called to the young tech specialist, who was documenting everything through multiple sensor arrays. Every wavelength, every chemical signature, every electromagnetic pulse, Alex replied, his eyes wide with amazement. Dr. Vasquez, the patterns are incredibly complex. It's like watching a symphony performed by an entire biosphere. Captain Sarah Martinez joined them at the observation post, her morning coffee steaming in the humid air that their life support systems were filtering from outside. Any signs of hostility? That's just it, Elena replied, gesturing toward the living wall of vegetation surrounding their clearing. I'm seeing curiosity, caution, even what might be playfulness but no aggression. The chemical signatures in the air suggest the planet is investigating us. Commander Jake Foster emerged from the tactical station, his expression thoughtful rather than alarmed. Captain, I've been analyzing the movement patterns of the larger organisms. They're maintaining a respectful distance, but they're definitely observing us. It's like they're waiting for something. Dr. Chen Wei looked up from her botanical analysis station, excitement evident in her voice. I think I know what they're waiting for. The root network communications I've been monitoring show increasing complexity over the past few hours. The patterns suggest anticipation, like the planet is preparing for some kind of interaction. Sarah made a decision that would have horrified the Galactic Council. Prepare for surface contact. Full environmental suits, but no weapons. We're going to meet our host properly. The airlock cycled open with a soft hiss, and the humans stepped onto the surface of Verdania for the first time. The air was thick, with humidity, and rich with scents that ranged from floral sweetness to earthy richness. But what struck them most was the silence. Not the absence of sound, but the quality of listening, as if the entire world was holding its breath. Elena knelt and carefully removed a small instrument from her pack, placing it gently on the soil. Initiating biological interface protocol, she announced, both to her team and to any planetary intelligence that might be listening. The device was designed to translate biochemical signals into patterns that might be interpretable as communication. The response was immediate. The ground beneath the device began to change color, darkening and then lightening in waves that spread outward in concentric circles. Nearby plants leaned toward the humans, not threateningly, but with what appeared to be curiosity. Alex's portable sensors went wild with activity. Captain, I'm detecting massive data transfers through the root network. Whatever we just activated, it's being analyzed by the entire planetary system. Commander Foster maintained his protective stance but couldn't help being impressed. In all the mission reports, hostile contact began within minutes of landing. We've been here for 18 hours, and the planet seems more interested than aggressive. That's when Dr. Chen made the breakthrough that would change everything. She had been studying samples of soil and plant matter that the planet seemed to be offering them, small portions of itself that literally grew up from the ground near their feet. Sarah, you need to see this. The genetic material in these samples isn't just complex, it's adaptive in real time. The planet isn't just a collective intelligence, it's a learning organism. It's been studying every species that ever landed here, incorporating their biological and technological knowledge into its own structure. The implications hit Sarah like a physical blow. That's why the responses got more sophisticated with each failed expedition. Verdania wasn't just defending itself, it was learning from every encounter, becoming more effective at neutralizing threats. Elena's biological interface device began producing sounds, not random noise, but structured patterns that almost resembled music. The plants around them began responding with movements that matched the rhythms, creating a visual representation of the audio patterns. It's trying to communicate, Elena breathed. The planet is attempting to establish a language protocol with us. Over the following days, the humans developed something unprecedented in galactic history, a communication system with a planetary consciousness. They discovered that Verdania's hostility toward previous expeditions hadn't been simple aggression, but rather the response of an entity that had been repeatedly invaded by species seeking to exploit or dominate it. The breakthrough came when Alex suggested introducing Verdania to human art and music. If it's learning from us, he reasoned, let's show it what makes humanity unique beyond our technology and biology. They began broadcasting human cultural achievements through their biological interface. Music from every Earth culture, visual art, poetry, literature, mathematical theorems expressed as art forms. The planet's response was extraordinary. The forest around them began creating visual representations of the music, with flowers blooming in patterns that matched symphonic structures and trees swaying in rhythms that complemented the melodies. Dr. Vasquez made careful notes as she observed the planet's artistic responses. It's not just mimicking our cultural expressions, it's creating variations, improvements, entirely new combinations. Verdania is collaborating with us artistically. Commander Foster, trained to think in terms of tactics and strategy, recognized something the scientist had missed. Captain, this planet has been alone for millions of years. Every species that ever came here came to take something from it. We're the first visitors who came to give something instead. The communication breakthrough came on their 7th day. Dr. Chen, working with Elena's biological interface, managed to establish a rudimentary question and answer protocol. The first exchange was simple but profound. Why did you kill the others? Elena transmitted through patterns of biochemical signals. The response came as images projected through the movement of plants and the play of light through the canopy. They saw representations of massive machines tearing up forests, weapons firing at living creatures, industrial installations poisoning water sources. The planet showed them its memories of invasion after invasion, each more destructive than the last. "We came to learn," Sarah transmitted, "not to take." The forest around them shimmered with movement and new images appeared. Humans studying, sharing music, offering gifts of art and knowledge. The planet was showing them how it perceived their mission, not as invaders but as the first species to approach it with genuine curiosity and respect. Over the next few weeks, the humans established protocols that revolutionized interspecies contact. They learned that Verdania wasn't a single organism, but rather a collective consciousness comprising every living thing on the planet. It had achieved perfect ecological balance through cooperation rather than competition, and it viewed the constant invasions as attacks on this harmony. The planet began sharing its knowledge, biological technologies that could heal diseases, agricultural techniques that could end hunger, energy systems that worked in complete harmony with natural ecosystems. In return, the humans shared mathematics, philosophy, art, and the concept of interstellar cooperation. Commander Foster realized they had stumbled upon something bigger than first contact. "Captain, we're not just communicating with Verdania. We're establishing the foundation for a completely new kind of galactic relationship. Instead of expansion through conquest, we're looking at growth through cooperation." The transformation of their relationship with the planet accelerated when Dr. Chen discovered that Verdania could consciously control its own evolution. It had developed the ability to adapt not just to threats, but to opportunities. When it realized that humans represented collaboration rather than conquest, it began modifying itself to better interface with human technology and biology. "It's incredible," Chen reported during their daily transmission to Earth. "Verdania is literally growing human-compatible interfaces, plants that can process our technology, organisms that can facilitate communication, even atmospheric adjustments that make surface operations more comfortable for us." By the end of their first month on Verdania, the humans had achieved something that 23 advanced civilizations had failed to accomplish. They hadn't conquered the planet, they had befriended it. More than that, they had established the first interspecies partnership between humanity and a planetary consciousness. The final test came when Sarah made a proposal that would have seemed insane to any military strategist. "Verdania, we want to invite other species to meet you. Peaceful species who might also prefer cooperation to conquest." The planet's response took 3 days to formulate, during which the humans could sense vast discussions taking place through the root networks and biochemical communication systems. When the answer came, it arrived as a gift, a small seed that contained the genetic blueprint for a plant that could survive in space and facilitate biological communication across interstellar distances. Elena held the seed with reverence, understanding its implications. This is how Verdania wants to join the galactic community, not as a planet to be colonized or exploited, but as a participant in interstellar civilization. When the Curiosity finally departed Verdania, it carried more than scientific data and biological samples. It carried proof that humanity's approach to the unknown, based on curiosity, respect, and genuine desire for understanding, could succeed where force and exploitation had failed. The Galactic Council's reaction to their report was initially skeptical, then amazed, and finally transformative. For the first time in galactic history, a world previously considered hostile had become a willing partner in interstellar civilization. Captain Martinez concluded her formal report with words that would become legendary among human explorers. "We went to Verdania expecting to find a monster. Instead, we found a teacher. The lesson it taught us is simple. The universe is vast, enough for cooperation to replace conquest, understanding to replace fear, and friendship to replace domination. Sometimes the greatest victory isn't winning a war. It's preventing one through the simple act of extending an open hand instead of a closed fist." Verdania had taught humanity that even in the vastness of space, the most powerful weapon was often the willingness to listen, learn, and offer friendship to those who seemed most different from themselves.